Well, good morning and welcome to Hidden in the Heartland podcast. Excited to be here today. We've been gone for a little bit, but we're coming back with hopefully some more content. Things have been busy, and because we're independent, it makes it a little difficult to do one thing after another. And so we appreciate your patience. Um, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit with Mark Burris, who's the crazy man right here on my right. And Mark is beaming in from Palmyra, New York. So how you doing, Mark? How's it going?
Things are great.
Awesome.
Couple days ago, they just put up a brand new sign on the Grandin building, and it's really beautiful.
Really? Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
so like it used to say Book of Mormon publication site, and now it says EB Grandin Print Shop and Bookstore.
Ah,
Um,
just like it
so
was back in the
yeah.
day. Just
But
kidding.
if you go onto our the Comorland Press Facebook page, I posted a picture of it. I actually it was last week. Like right now, I pulled into the front of the Granite building. I live right next to it, and I they were installing it. So I did a little video of them putting this sign up.
Ah, that you
Um,
caught it at the good time.
it's yeah,
So
beautiful navy blue. It's yeah. So
that's
Palmyra is
awesome.
great.
Well, we're going to come back to that here in a minute. I just wanted to uh, um, do a couple of shout outs. One is obviously they just had the Firm Foundation conference, and we want to congratulate Rod and the group, Ryan, for having a sounds like a successful conference. I was not there; I was busy, but they were. There's a company that I'm helping start called Your Legacy Videos, and my partner Doug Crockett was there, and he spoke, and he had a booth there, and he basically talked about he likes collecting stories, and he likes to put them into video documentary form, and so I've been helping him do that. So I've been kind of the other side of his company, helping him start, and so he was there talking about preserving, memories, preserving histories. And so your legacy videos is the name of the company, and basically uh, it's his company, but I'm just helping him. We go in and we interview people who are kind of at that later part of their lives, kind of like me. I'm at the later part of my lives, whereas Mark is kind of at the beginning of his life. So we wouldn't make a video about Mark, but we'd make a video about me
Pretty
because
boring.
I'm so old. So, because Mark's like 21, I'm like 75. And so, anyway, not really, but we would interview people, and then we would make a full on nice sit down two camera documentary, which is kind of nice. We've done about four or five of them so far, just as a chance to get the company rolling, and they've been faring really nice. They turned into about a hour and a half type setting where you can just sit and give your whole life story, and then we can insert pictures and videos and make it just like you're watching a nice documentary. And then we would stick it on a YouTube channel so that the whole family can see it for years and years. And then we can also give you a file for that. Anyway, Doug was there, and what's interesting about Doug Crockett, who's my partner on that, and again, it's his company, but he went and spoke. Doug actually is a winner on the Family Feud recently. So if you've
Ooh.
ever recently, probably about 2 or 3 months ago, they aired his show. They finally aired his show, but him and his four Crockett brothers, they all wore these, Davy Crockett hats, and they went on the Family Feud and they cleaned their clocks. They won, for the whole week, and then they won a car at the end of the week. So,
Ooh.
which is great
Had
for
to share
Doug.
it, huh?
So,
No, had to share it
yeah, I had to
on one
talk about it.
car.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's really, really kind of fun. But anyway, they said they had a great experience with Steve Harvey, and they're all good spiritual brothers, and I've known them for a while. So anyway, so it sounds like the Firm Foundation conference was great. Sounds like they had a great connection with the one gentleman from Scripture Central at the end of the conference, which is important to do, as you know, as Mark and I have kind of talked a little here and there about trying to keep good vices, or good, not vices, good relations with those who don't necessarily believe in the heartland, but are, you know, and are really focused on the Mesoamerica studies, which, in my opinion, is still important and still impressive. I just, my personal thing is I'm like Wayne. I'm a one hill guy, and I think that that's where everything happened. But that's my personal note. But I don't get personal with the study, because the study is important. Because our goal is to find out who was here long before Columbus. That's the goal, is to find out, and then we stick to the information. Which also takes me to the next announcement, and that is the Ancient Artifact Preservation Society. Now, I have talked about them before, and there is a conference coming up in October, and it's actually during General Conference weekend. But this is the conference I've talked about in previous episodes when I've presented a lot of evidence talking about some of the historical documents, the historical um, evidences that show that there were people that came to America long before Columbus. And these guys present a lot of great content, and almost none of them are LDS, except Wayne May will show up, and there's one other guy that's there that's LDS. But the bulk, all of them, David Lindsley actually spoke there, which was great. And we remember we talked to David a little bit recently. But this conference is where David spoke last year. So it's coming up again. And I'm looking at the ad here, and I wish I could project it to you, but I'm just going to read it to you. Wayne May will be speaking at this conference, and he's going to be talking on Michigan plates. But there's other great discussions, such as, um, I mean, some of them actually do go to Central America, which is amazing. But most of them are all in North America. Lee Pennington will come back to talk more about the stuff in Tennessee, and the Tennessee dolmens, and then varied artifacts, megalithic type artifacts, and there's a lot of dolmens that are up in um, kind of the New England area, kind of Massachusetts, and all up in that area. There's some great structures there that I think we're not giving a lot of credence to or study to. And so it's important, I think, to find out more about that, because that is a good candidate for where Book of Mormon action happened. And whether it be the Jaredite nation, whether it be the Nephite nation, or the Mulek nation. And so the people of Mulek. And so they, you know, remember, these three civilizations lived for a good, you know, 400 years and didn't know the other existed. And what does that say? That means that they built their cities. They built these places and lived there. And it's just we've done a terrible job at preserving them over the years. We've just kind of made ourselves
Yeah.
in. So
we decided we wanted to live in the same places that they lived. We used
yeah,
all the materials that they used to build their cities. So like if it's funny because the same things that they um prevalently used, we used in early American history, you know,
yeah,
the stone and wood, stone foundation and wood building. So, you know,
yeah. You go to this conference and you learn a lot about these types of things, as well as native stories. And there's no Book of Mormon skin in the game with them. That's the beauty of this research, is there is no, you know, we can talk all day about what Joseph said. And what Joseph said was important, because that's why we're here. We're
yeah,
here because, but we need to go beyond that, and we need to go find the evidence to support what Joseph said. And just because Joseph said it, we're working on the evidence to support what Joseph said, because it's there. It's not easy to find, but it's there. And sometimes you have to dive into the history books. I did an interesting tour out this. I'll say this and then we'll jump into our main discussion. But I went on an interesting. I rode on a Sherpa, and a Sherpa is a huge vehicle with tires that are 6 feet tall or more, and you have to like almost take an elevator to get up into it. Well, not, I'm kidding about that part, but you have to climb a ladder to go into the Sherpa. And there's a gentleman, and I'm not going to go deep into it, but he uh feels like he has found a boat buried out in the desert in Utah. And there is an oval shaped object that is out on the salt flats, way out there, like on the way to Wendover. And it's way out in the middle of nowhere. And so we had to ride the Sherpa to get to it. And so I went and rode with him with a camera, and we filmed, and we took an archaeologist with us. And what was fascinating was the archaeologist. He happened to be LDS, and we had nice long talks because it took 2.5 hours to get to the site. And what was fascinating, I think that I got more than the actual trip, was talking to him about all of the stupid litigation that comes. I call it stupid. He didn't call it stupid, but I think it's stupid. The litigations that go from discovering new sites, because he went as an archaeologist to go find it, and there was so much he couldn't and wouldn't do, because in order to keep his archaeological license or whatever, and to stay in good graces with the other skeptical archaeologists, he we walked away with nothing, honestly, because he was saying, I see something there, but I can't touch it, and I can't dig in here. But if you want to dig it, that's fine. But then if you dig it, that means it's not real. That means you found it and I didn't, so I can't qualify it. You know, and it was so much piled on litigation that came with finding something and saying, yes, this was something ancient, and yes, it was of this date, and blah, blah, blah. It has gotten so bad to where it's almost like fantasy if you even find anything of great worth today in America, because the
That,
rules are so rigid, and the methods are so expensive and ridiculous that it's almost like, why try? And so this guy is on a real hunt. So now his next step is he's going to be getting a LiDAR guy to go out, because he thinks that this boat, you can see the shape. It's 450 feet long, and it's about 75 feet wide. So it's there. There's something there, but the archaeologist could not say that something was there, because he doesn't see. He says, well, it could just be a place where water, because there were a lot of other lines all through it. There's a lot of other like indentations in the ground. So he couldn't walk away saying, yeah, unless boat was actually sticking up out of it, and then he saw a culture. He can only deem anything if he sees an evidence of culture, if he sees that man did something to interrupt the natural, springs of whatever. And so it was really fascinating. It was really interesting and eye-opening to seeing how, honestly, that's why in Jerusalem and all those other places, and then even in other countries, they're probably a lot more like accepting. I don't know. I can't speak for, Mexico or Central America or, you know, uh, the old world anywhere. I can't speak for them, so I don't know what their laws or rules are like, but I know at least in America, it's a
well,
booger.
have you watched Don Verdine? Like you should know
Oh yeah, Don
what,
Verdine
what the
will
laws
let
are.
you know. For those who know what I'm talking about, you ought to. look for Don Verdeen, Bible archaeologist, actually directed by my good friend Jared Hess, who made Napoleon Dynamite, did Don Verdeen, and it's actually a funny movie. The end isn't very great, in my opinion, but it's about that same mentality, I feel like. But
But
any
now we know why Indiana Jones carries a whip,
that's right.
you know. So,
Ah, the good old
but it's
days.
and it's interesting that, there are things that are there, but we're
Yeah,
not really allowed to go look at them. And I've heard that up in Canada, like let's say you're digging in your backyard and you find something,
yeah,
you actually have to pay for an archaeologist to come and do a professional dig.
yeah,
Like that's written in the Canadian law. So we have this area that we can say, hey, we know where the Hill Cumorah is. It's pretty close to Canada, and it's in these areas, and nothing's allowed to be. We're not allowed to dig anything up. We could in the 1800s, but now we can't dig anything new up. Not allowed to do that. Archaeologists aren't allowed to really say anything. Um, so we're kind of in an interesting predicament.
yeah,
Luckily, we have people like Willard Bean, and we have the newspapers, that state what had been dug up. I've
yeah.
been reading an awful lot lately of the hundreds of thousands of even millions of artifacts that were sent to Europe from Western New York to fill the museums, and they were labeled as Indian artifact, where they were
Interesting.
Hopewell,
Yeah,
um, or they were Adina, but there was such a hunger for American West. The whole world wanted to know about the Indians and what was going on. So, you know, we're in an
yeah.
interesting place right now.
Well, and it's
Trying to,
when you're dealing with, yeah, when you're bringing it, and that's interesting that you would say that. And this will be the last thing I say, and then let's dive into what we really came here to talk about today. But it's fascinating that you can't. It's like there it is. Pay an archaeologist to do it, but don't touch it. But we don't know what it is. So maybe there's something, but maybe there's not. So maybe we should pay somebody to do something that we don't know if it's really
yeah.
there. It's like this catch 22,
Or the other thing that will happen is something will be
stupid.
found, and a Native American tribe will be like, "Oh, that's ours,"
Yeah.
and there doesn't, and there's no requirement for like DNA testing or anything of that nature to actually make sure. And I understand that the tribes want to make sure that these things are not
Yeah.
defiled, but clearly we can see that the Hopewell and Adina, both DNA and culturally, are different than the
Yeah.
modern Native American Indian. And sometimes when you're finding artifact and you're preserving it and you're educating people, you're doing a whole lot more than you would by whisking something away and hiding
Yeah.
it.
And yeah, it's almost like you're ruining the experience more by protecting it than actually. I mean, think about it. We just passed in Come Follow Me. We just passed Omni and Enos and Omni and Jerem, right? Those we've just gone past those books now at the beginning of Mosiah in our reading. And during that period, they found a stone that talked about who the Jaredites were. They
Mhm.
found plates that talked about who this ancient people were.
They
Did
found
did they
artifacts.
go through did they go through the litigation that they needed to say, well, we don't even know if this stone is real. We don't even know if these plates are real. Somebody could have just made them. I don't know. And who knows, maybe there were those skeptics that did actually do that. But it's almost silly. It's almost silly the way we handle it versus the way it probably was handled at one point in time. And I just feel like we have. That's why it's so important that we study the history, and the older the record, the better, because
Mhm.
I feel like you're going to get more truth out of, not that you're not going to get a slanted language about it, but it does mean that you're totally shielding what people found in the past. But that's almost about all we can refer to. We can't go in our backyard and start digging anymore. So we have to go to the history books to find what others found and see if there is anything anywhere, unless there's private collections out there, which I would love to
Yeah, and the
find.
that's where the private's where you're gonna find, because
Yeah,
the institution museums, like, I don't know if you've ever been to the Museum of Natural History in New York,
yeah,
shows all the cultures of the world, and you see the Chinese and you see Europe and all these cultures, and you see them with metal, working metal. And then
yeah,
you see the Native American and they're just brute, you know? Like the portrayal is just awful.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
if you were looking at the same time period, the same things were happening in North America. And we know that. We know there was metal work. We know that those things were happening, but decisions were made by people at a higher pay grade than us, that were like, hey, we're going to make anybody that lived in North America look like they were not even human. Um,
yeah.
and that was, that was part of removing the Native Americans from their land and things like that. But
Yeah, and we
those,
went from destroying what we saw because of the Native American aspect to it, to preserving it to a ridiculous level of not even being able to study it.
yeah,
So we literally have rubber banded our way from, and somewhere in the middle there, during that transition period of ripping everything up, for our,
yeah,
to over preserving to the point where we don't learn anything. Somewhere in
yeah,
the middle there is when I think we got a lot of truth, as I try
yeah.
to
And
mention on my.
or you'll have like, the University of Buffalo, they have over a million artifacts, but there's only 100 pieces on display. So like,
Yeah,
unless you were really looking and you were asking, how would you even know
yeah,
how many artifacts they have? And
yeah,
unless you were researching and you could get access to it, and who knows how they store it, you
yeah,
know. So lots of these things have maybe been seen by three or four people,
yeah,
put in a
yeah. It's
box
sad.
and left to be that way. But like, you go to university, the anthropology department, and um I went on their website and it does say how many artifacts they have, but it's just sort of like, well, what do you have? And those artifacts, what's there?
Yeah,
Is
that's
it
right.
do you have marbles, or what do you have? You know, I
Yeah,
mean it. So there are museums that do have the artifact, but the majority of them are squirreled away somewhere
yeah.
that no one will ever
Those
see.
it's those private
Um,
ones. If you can find those private
yeah.
ones, those are the ones that are a little more apt to let you do that.
I
So
mean, the Michigan tablets, they have them in Lansing, but you have to ask to go see them. They don't have hardly
yeah,
any on display. So it's one of those things where hopefully at some point in the future we can say, hey, it's worth people taking a look at this stuff. We need to be proud of the heritage of this land and make it known to the world what's been found and what was here.
yeah. Uh,
Egypt doesn't have any problem being proud of what happened. Other nations don't have a problem with their artifacts. They want people to see them, and we should be the same. We should say, hey, look at these, look at it.
yeah, that's right. I agree. All right, Mark. Well, so anyway, so those are some things to think about. I know we're kind of talking in circles, as has been commented recently. But we these are just thoughts that we have before we start diving into new history. I wanted to take today and spend a moment with Mark while he talked about this new venture that he has started, that we hope that you're able to help out with. and it's this waterproof Book of Mormon that he has. So what I want to do is start with Mark. Why do you have what is this thrill with producing this waterproof Book of Mormon? Where did this journey start with for you?
Um, so I think the journey for me in at least in publishing, started when I was really little. Um, when I was about 7 years old, my mother brought home a couple of really old Bibles, and they were big, and they had these beautiful engravings. And I was allowed to look at them in the dining room on the floor, and I would be under the dining room table, and I'd look at these huge Bibles with these beautiful engravings, and I'd
Oh yeah.
rub my hands over them. Um, every every year we'd our vacation. I grew up in Massachusetts. Our vacation was to come to Palmyra to go to the Hill Cumorah pageant. And I remember going to the Grandin building. It was before they restored the Grandin building. It was kind of this weird building on the main floor. They actually printed a sheet from the Book of Mormon, and I was like, "Oh, that's how they printed those big Bibles. That's
Oh, that's
really
cool.
amazing." And for years and years after that, I had a dream, this reoccurring dream. It would keep me up at night that someone would publish the Book of Mormon the same way that it was done in 1830 in Palmyra, that it was going to happen. It was going to happen. Um, and in 2009, um, I found a company that was doing just that. And I
That's
emailed them
awesome.
and I said, "Hey, what do you need? This is amazing. This needs to be done. The book needs to be printed on a printing press. What do you need?" And they said, "Well, we need people." So I moved out to Palmyra to print the Book of Mormon by hand, to fold it, to to stitch it, to bind it. Um,
Wow. That
and it
was a
never
neat
the
experience.
project never happened. But I
Uh,
learned a lot. I learned a lot. The owners didn't pay their taxes. So I learned that you pay your taxes. And
what?
I learned about the printing process, and I grew this. I already had this amazing love for the Book of Mormon. Um, and that love went even further. After working for that little company, Experience Press, we printed about a third of the Book of Mormon, hand printed it. Um, and then a job opportunity opened just down the street for a bookstore manager, and I managed that bookstore for 8 years. We housed the Ancient American um, museum there with
That's right.
artifacts. It
And
was
if
really
you watch the Hidden in the Heartland one episode, either 7, 8, or 9, or 8, 9, or 10, yeah, you'll see that bookstore. You'll see Mark in that
so
bookstore.
really, really cool, to have those artifacts. While I was managing that bookstore, I became interested in publishing again, looking at things. Uh, Started a publishing company called Cumorland Press. We published our own replica of the 1830 Book of Mormon. We published Emma's hymnal, the first hymnal of the church, and also the Book of Commandments. And at about that same time, I was gifted. Oh, whoa. Sorry about that. Just knocked the camera over. I was gifted
Whoops.
uh, a waterproof Bible.
Ah.
And it's pretty crazy. So these have been out for about 10 years. Um, and they're some of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life.
So who made the
Um,
waterproof Bible? Who did that?
it's a company called Barden and Marseille Publishing.
Okay.
And what's interesting about them is they had a patent on this technology. So printing a waterproof book, they were the only ones that could do it. And their
Oh,
patent
wow.
ran out just a few years ago. So it ran out. But one of the things that really interested in this waterproof Bible is I served my mission in Central America. And in Central America, the elements just kill books, kill them. I had some hardbound books sitting on my table as a missionary, and the cockroaches ate the glue out of it. They
Oh
made
my
their home
goodness.
in the book. The humidity would weaken the pages, the binding would come loose, the covers would come off. I went through four triple combinations. on my mission.
Oh my goodness.
Pages would
Wow.
rip, things like that. Or you'd carry around one of those blue copies of the Book of Mormon, and we'd have to create a little sleeve to put the book in because the elements would get to it and it would ruin the book. It would just ruin it. I've heard of a lot of missionaries that would go through one giveaway blue Book of Mormon a day. It
Hmm.
would just ruin, like it would fall apart. They put it under their arm, the blue would bleed. So just different things like that. So having the waterproof Bible, I started thinking, hey, there's a lot of potential here. The beauty of this book is it can get wet, it can get submerged. There's movies where people build uh ice cream sundae on top of this book and then they just spray it off with a hose. You can hold it by a page
Wow.
and
That's
you
really
can
good.
really, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong
And it
with it.
snaps back wash after
Snaps
wash.
snaps back, wash
Uh,
after wash. When my little boy, I don't know if anybody has this problem, but it might just be me with the way that I raise my kids, but little kids love the hymnal, right? They love grabbing the hymnal in church, and what ends
oh
up
yeah.
happening with that hymnal? Have you ever heard of a hymnal being ripped in the middle of sacrament meeting?
Oh yeah.
Oh
All the
yeah,
time.
it happens. So I would give this to my toddler, and he could just have at it. He could flip through it, do whatever he wanted to the book. It would save the hymnals. Not that, I mean, you definitely want to teach your children to respect the scriptures and the hymnals, but sometimes, they want that hymnal so bad that being able to give them something. But um, these books are they actually advertise them as indestructible.
Interesting.
Um, Growing up, I remember my mother putting together a 72-hour kit. I don't know if how many of our viewers have those, but a grab kit that if there's ever an emergency, and she put the 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 missionary editions of the scriptures in those 72-hour kits in a little Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
Um, so if you ever have an emergency, you got to grab something, you got to go, you have scriptures in your bag, but what happens to those once water hits them?
Yeah. That's
They're
right.
ruined. So an emergency, we have all the things that we need to do to keep our physical bodies to protect them. But what do we have to make sure that we have the scriptures with us?
Yeah.
So we have two options with scriptures. We either have the ones that are real cheap that are throwaway or are really expensive scriptures, and they both kind of have the same problem. They fall apart over time. Um, so we started a Kickstarter campaign because we have to raise money. It's not cheap. I don't have, the funds to be able to do it. Um, so we're just looking for people to pledge with Kickstarter. You pledge whatever amount of money you'd like to. Um, and then there are rewards based on how much you pledge. You qualify for rewards and you can pick those. Um, they don't collect those pledges until the project actually funds.
Yeah. And if
This
it
is
doesn't fund that you
If it doesn't fund, then we don't
there's
take
no
any.
worry about the money, but if it
We don't
does,
take any.
then that's when it goes through. That's right.
So this is a prototype of the Waterproof Book of Mormon. Since I'm here in Palmyra, we designed it to look like the 1830 edition of the Book of Mormon. So this is Book of Mormon, waterproof edition. This is what the inside looks like. So what we've
Look at that.
utilized with this book is the 1920 edition of the Book of Mormon. So that's public domain. We requested permission to use the 2013 from the church, but they never responded. We've emailed them
They went,
countless.
who are you? That's what they did, huh?
Who are
So,
you? Yeah, they just, I guess, they ignored it. So we're utilizing the public domain edition of the Book of Mormon 1920, but it's compared. What we did is we went back to the 1840 edition. That's the last edition that Joseph edited. And what he did is he went and he had the original manuscripts, not the printer manuscript. So this is the manuscript that was produced while the plates were being translated. So that first manuscript, he went through and he made sure that everything was correct. And also through Revelation, Joseph's vocabulary had improved. So through Revelation, there were certain spots where maybe there was a word that was a bit better than what he had chosen. Because
Yeah,
during translation, a lot of times you're confined to your vocabulary.
that's right.
It's not, there are a few words, yeah, that Joseph, it was spelt out to him what that word was, but sometimes there's a word that better meets what the original prophet had to say. Um, so the cool thing about this is the layout is very simple. There aren't footnotes. It's just really super easy to read. Um, if you guys are familiar with David Hawking, he is the editor of the Annotated Book of Mormon. So he edited this. He helped us with this. And
Wow,
it's
that's
really
great.
cool. It's really cool because he's added underlining, and that shows where it's quoting other scriptures. I italicis in different areas. The other cool thing is that we do have art from David Lindsley as well. So
Ah, the
he's
man.
he's
That's
let us
awesome.
use his art in there.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things that I really try to tell people, a lot of times, or share with people. A lot of times people say, well, I have the scriptures on my phone. Why would I need that? I have copies in my house. Why would I need that? Well, there's a story at the beginning of the Book of Mormon that's really interesting, and we're all familiar with it. It's Nephi and the brass plates, right? So Nephi and his family, it isn't written in the record, but I'm sure they had access to the scriptures. It seems like they knew the scriptures pretty well. They probably had scrolls in their home. I'm sure Nephi had the book of Isaiah. So they had those scriptures, but they were sent back for a set of scriptures that couldn't be destroyed.
Yeah.
That would be able to go through the elements that they could have in the wilderness, that it was something that was just durable, that they could have. And we don't know what the future holds. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we
I mean,
now well,
one day we may not have the internet.
yeah,
So,
will we have phones? Will we have that? But to have a set of scriptures that you can literally throw in your backpack, that can be submerged in water, that can be, you don't have to worry about it. I remember, going to seminary and making sure that I had to have my scriptures in my scripture case, and do I hold it or put it in my backpack, or sometimes you put a book in your backpack and it would be completely ruined by
yeah.
the time you get it. But the one of the cool things is that this is the book block of the paper, the waterproof paper. Is this paper is stone? Isn't that cool?
Wow. Holy
Made from
cow.
stone. So isn't that a cool thought?
Yeah.
That you'd have the scriptures written on stone. So it's when they cut stone, there's a powder residue left, and they mix it with a polymer.
Oh,
So this
fascinating.
is meant to last at least 500 years. That's at least.
Holy cow.
Um,
So is this the
so
first ever, like, would this be the first time the Book of Mormon's ever in a waterproof setting
first time
besides the
ever.
plates?
Yeah. So for first time ever. Um, and what's interesting is for a while after my mission, I ran a little business where I was in antique books, and I cleaned out people's basements for free. I'll clean out your basement, but I get to keep what you have. And I can't tell you how many people would have a whole huge library and all these books that they collected that they wanted to share with others, and they'd be ruined. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they spent all this money on these books. Elements are not great with
Yeah.
books.
I've got a few of
I don't
those. So,
I don't know if you guys have seen when they pulled the capstone off of the Salt Lake Temple. They pulled that capstone off, and what did they put in the capstone? Well, they put some books in there, and some photographs and some coins and things. What happened to the books? They were all ruined.
really? Wow.
A little bit of water got in, just a little tiny bit, and that capstone was meant to be sealed airtight, but a little tiny bit of water just devastated those.
Yeah.
So this is just an option for a book that you don't have to worry about. You can throw in your 72-hour kit, you can have in your backpack, you can have, I would have loved this on my mission
Oh
because
yeah, I bet.
with the high humidity, being able to just, I mean, I might not have preached from this because I spoke Spanish, but to have this as a personal reader, to be able to take it with me and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Um, Also something like that, I've noticed with my children is you give them the scriptures and you're like, hey, you have to be super, super, super careful because these are special and they are special. But you need to be super careful. You can't rip the pages. You need to just be careful. But something that I want for my children is for them to just be able to have the scriptures and carry them around and use them, you
Yeah.
know, and be able to open them and put them in their backpack and make it something um it's accessible, you know. They
Yeah.
don't have to worry about, when I ran the bookstore time and time again, people would bring their scriptures into the bookstore after a year of having a triple combination, and the cover would be ripped off, and they'd be like, "Oh, my child is so careful. I have no idea what happened.
Until then.
Shouldn't- this shouldn't have happened. The cover shouldn't have come off."
Yeah.
And it's like, well, kids are kids, right?
Yeah.
And
Things are not perfect,
and once a cover comes off the scriptures and the kid goes through that experience of saying, "Oh my gosh, what did I do? And I don't want to do that again." Do they touch them again? I don't know. But
Yeah.
just having a book that's available that you can utilize, that you don't have to worry about, that'll last you. You could get one of these for your child at 8 years old, and because of the material that it's made out of, by the time they're 80, it'll look the same.
Yeah.
um, and it could be passed down. And like I said, we don't know what the future brings. I hope that nothing happens. I hope we can use our phones forever for the scriptures, but having a paper set of scriptures that will last.
Yeah.
It's
We
kind of what we're
always
working on.
it's always been good to have hard copies of anything, but then it's also good to have a hard copy that lasts for a while. And you're right. I inherited when my parents passed away. I remember having to go through all of their papers and books, and they have one of those big old Bibles that was in their library. They had this old library, but it's yeah, after 100 years, you're already breaking down, and I mean, even obviously less than that, like you said, a year or two, but even the older books, they, to see them preserved, it's like you have to like be so careful
Yeah,
with them. Whereas if you're able to have something that has a stone element to it, is definitely a plus to keeping it. And maybe eventually, you think eventually, if this, can go, if this can be something that will take off, you might go back and do a waterproof Bible and Doctrine and
yeah,
Covenants and things like
yeah.
that
We
eventually.
so with the church recently acquiring the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible, both the Bible and the ledger book that accompanies it.
Yeah,
We'd love to work on that. I'd love to do other languages. I think that this would be amazing. Spanish, Portuguese, Brazil. Like, think
yeah,
of all the members that are down in Brazil.
exactly. Good
And
point.
if you look at the scriptures, they've always been made of materials that were meant to last, but did they? Um, it's been a recent thing that our scriptures have been printed on the really thin rice paper. And it's amazing because it's thin and your scriptures aren't big and bulky, but that paper does have a tendency to want to rip. I
Yeah,
remember on my mission, I tried to install tabs because they weren't available in the Spanish scriptures. And I put them on, and you'd lift a tab and it would rip the whole page. And it
yeah,
was just, oh, and these are things that you're not meaning to hurt your scriptures. You're not meaning to like destroy them. but
Yeah.
they end up getting pretty hacked up. And that's probably like that red badge of courage that your scriptures look really gnarly and whatnot.
Yeah.
Shows that you've really been reading them. But my goal is just have something available that no matter what, you can grab it, that it's there for you, that it'll always be there for you. Um, and our hope would be to move, like I said, to be able to do the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible. Um, and I was thinking, I was talking to one of the guy that I partnered up with. If we were still in scouting, the scout manual on this would be absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
You're a scout and you're camping. There's lots
Oh
of
yeah. I went
utility.
through a lot of scouting books.
Yeah, but there's lots of utility to be able to, lots of people like to camp, like to be outdoors, like to hunt, all of those different things, and you have to worry about element like this. These were originally the waterproof books were originally um marketed for, novels for people that are going on vacation so they can read on the beach. The
Yeah.
material's a little bit, you know, more expensive to do novels, but for
Yeah.
scriptures, I feel it's perfect
Yeah.
for the type of book that you're going to be using over and over again every day.
Yeah.
It's perfect. So
That's a
we
that's a,
um we have a piece of paper, piece of this material that's been in a mason jar for 4 months filled with water, and
oh
it's printed
wow.
full color, and we pull it out once a month. It's our little tradition, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing
Amazing.
happened to it. Yeah. And I mean, I uh before we um before we started filming, I grabbed a paper and I just shook it. I just have one paper there. And I mean, would you do this with your scriptures at home?
Oh no, not at all.
No, I wouldn't, because it would just,
You just
but
rip right out.
um look, you can't even tell where I was pulling.
Yeah. Can't
If you
even
did that
see
with any
which one you were.
if you did that with any other book,
Yeah.
you'd see that forever. You'd know exactly where it is. You you can mark these. They do require a different kind of pen, and we're testing out what will work best.
Oh, that's a
Uh,
good point. It's a very good point.
we're really excited about it. We're at about 15% to the way to our goal. Um, and if you can, share
Yeah.
this with other people. I'm not expecting everybody to pledge. This is not everybody's cup of tea. I understand that. We have a referral program. So if you want to be part of the referral program, just email me. My email is Burris, Burris .mark, @gmail.com. I'll send you a special link. And if you share that link with your friends and it results in 10 pledges that are equal to a waterproof Book of Mormon, once we fund, you'll get a free waterproof Book of Mormon.
That's
So,
great.
simple. You just share it.
Yeah.
Share it with your friends. I would recommend that if you do share it, maybe write a little note of why you would like to see the waterproof Book of Mormon printed.
Yeah.
Like where would you use a waterproof Book of Mormon? Where would you use waterproof scriptures? I feel that at some point this is the way that our scriptures will be printed. Like
That's
this will be
great.
the standard.
Yeah.
And there have been standards over time. We didn't always print it on rice paper. Before that, it was printed on cotton rag. Before that, in the Middle Ages, there was a standard of what the scriptures were written on. And it's always been something that people felt that it would last, and it would last a long time. Finally, we have a material, and it's ironic that it's stone that
Yeah, it is.
that will last. So
Yeah, I had no idea about that, about it being stone. And
yeah,
so that's amazing information, Mark. And I think you're leading in a good direction. And I personally endorse it. I think that we need to have it. I think it's just as important as having your own. Obviously, like you said, it's probably not for everyone because A lot of people still like to use their devices or whatever, but eventually it'll get to a point to where you got to have it in your hand,
Yeah.
and it's got to be something that you take with you through all kinds of elements for years to come. And I'm excited about the marking part of it when you can figure out the system of being able to mark it, because that's what we do with those
Yeah.
scriptures. We mark them. But I think just the preservation of it is probably the most important thing to
And
have.
if you have a moment, you go onto YouTube and you type in waterproof Bible, you'll see videos of people. There's, for instance, a guy that left his Bible on top of his car, right? He drove away. It flew off into traffic. It was like a 4-lane highway. He went back a day later, picked it up. It had been run over, and it
Yeah,
was fine.
amazing.
One of the pages had a little tiny rip in it. Can you
Yeah.
imagine if you did that with a normal book of any
Oh,
kind?
that would, yeah, it would
Um,
totally shimmied, and yeah, with
so
the
it's
tire
it's
running
something
over it.
that it's like, hey, and most Latter-day Saint homes, if you look on your shelf, you 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 know you've got several copies of the Book of Mormon. A lot of people will have an 1830, they'll have the 2013, so
Yeah.
a few different copies and an electronic copy. This is the one that will outlast the others, and it's like I said, it's something that you can grab while you're running out the door
Yeah.
when you need to. It's something that you can, like I said, if I had this on my mission, I wouldn't have gone through that many triple
Well,
combinations. It was
it's interesting
water.
is I still have my mission scriptures, and I served in Louisiana, and I went through two because mine also fell apart, but I kept it. So I still have my mission scriptures, but I would never like open into it and read
Yeah.
it and take it to church and all that stuff, because I look at it more like an artifact that's
Yeah.
falling apart. That's more what it is. It's not something that I'm like, hey, let's all read in it, because I'd be afraid to. I'd be afraid to start opening
And
because
and
it's
that's
breaking apart like
unfortunate. I mean,
crazy.
if you had those missionary scriptures with all those notes that you took,
Yeah.
and you were able to share those with your great grandchildren, because it was printed on material that was really meant to last,
Yeah.
along with marking that was meant to last. I'm sure there's a lot of scriptures that are out there that are kind of squirreled away and hidden because they're to the point where they're just, you can't really handle them. But the notes and things that are in them, you know, that's the priceless stuff. So
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you very much. You know what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put the link, we'll put your email for the referral program for those who want to talk to Mark more about the product. And then we'll also put the link to the Kickstarter on our description on this video. And that way you're able to go online, read more about it, see Mark's story, and then see if you can't help Mark out with this, because it's really important. How much longer is the Kickstarter? Is there a time limit right now on the Kickstarter?
um let me check real quick.
So yeah, that's a question
How many days? Yeah, that's one thing
I
had
should have
ready.
prepared for him, but that's okay. We know it's coming. So
35 days left.
35 days left. So
Yep.
we'll probably post this video tomorrow. So it'll probably be 34 days left by the time you see this. But at least in the next month, throughout the month of May, be thinking about helping Mark out, and not only just helping Mark out, but this is more for you guys. To be able to have a copy of the Book of Mormon that'll last for generations, as it should be. And so, anyway, well, thank you, Mark. We'll just go ahead and wrap up there, and we'll be back again. We know we've been in and out. There's a lot to talk about still, and we're all busy, and we all have crazy lives. But we'll be doing more recording as we move forward with all of the research that's there, and we want you to keep studying Anciently, who lived here long before Columbus? That's the question that we continue to dig up. And as more stuff gets unfolded, we'll share it here on Hidden in the Heartland. And thank you much for joining us on this week's episode of Hidden in the Heartland podcast.